So she's going to play that one while we're just waiting for a bit. And you see they're insectivorous birds, so they have these long little, their bill is not really long, it's quite short actually. Oops, don't listen to that.
It's the ad.
But they really, all the wrens seem to like the understory. Oops, that sounds like balloons or something.
Okay, what this is the slowed down song of the winter wren, so you can hear the more the individual notes. So it's slowed down, I don't know how many times, but that what we just played would have just probably lasted a couple of seconds.
Do you want to play it again just to hear?
Well, see if I can
just
get
to play it
again.
But so complex, you can see it's all. The very first slide I showed, maybe I'll go back to that. Is that okay, Alison? If I went to the very first with the sonogram of the winter wren. Let's see, it's this one. There's the sonogram, the little thing with the bars underneath. And so that's what a picture of this. So you can see it goes up and down and the frequency changes, all sorts of things. So they're very complex. And apparently birds learn songs from, well, some of them are innate, but partly they do learn them from their cohorts or their parents too. And I read in the wrens fact that house wrens and maybe winter wren learns while the bird is in the egg, even when the parents are singing. So that is pretty cool. Are you going to play that one again? Or?
I just want to see if I can get another better one out.
Okay. So we'll go back to the winter. Here's the winter wren again. Oh, and look at that. There's a wren right there. Is that a Bewick one right there? It's in our oak.
That's actually slowed down.
That's incredible. They're amazing singer. They're maybe the most amazing singer. And next of all is the Bewick wren, which, Melissa, we just saw in your little oaks, looking out this window, hopping along in that little oak. So the Bewick wren are more of a wren of this part of Vancouver Island in our dry coastal Douglas fir zone. The Bewick wrens are. And all the wrens, the other characteristic of them is they have tails that stick up in the air. And the little thin bills, but this one has a stripe over its eye that's quite distinctive and quite a gorgeous song as well. But they need insectivorous.
You ready to go for the song?
Yes, okay, let's do. Yeah. Much more buzzes than the winter wren, whose song was more warbly but long and more long. But these ones nest in little cavities as well. The wrens nest in they like little holes. And in fact, the next bird I'm going to show you is the house wren. The house wren, he's a plain little fellow, but he has a most amazing song. And I have these house wrens that are really coming to nest. They're trying to nest right near me, and they have a more chattery and bubbling song than the Bewick wren or the winter wren. Now I have these house wrens. They're not introduced. They're called house wrens, but they will certainly be more common around these urban environments. And I have one that's trying to nest. They like brush. They make these. First of all, they sing and they set up a territory, and both the males and the females of these wrens apparently sing as well. I forgot to mention that even in the Pacific or winter wren. And they set up these territories, and then they start making, they nest in cavities, and they'll make up dummy nests. And so I'm really trying to encourage some violet green swallows to nest in the field next to me. And so I went out and bought some expensive bird boxes. But not only that, I really love the swallows because they're aerial insectivores. We'll talk about that a little bit. And they're having a rough time. And but there's a little house wren that's very persistent in taking up and filling up these swallow boxes with a dummy nest. And I read today online that they actually will destroy the eggs of the swallows too. So I'm trying to encourage this. I bought some more little swallow wren houses, and I'm trying to encourage them to nest farther back and away from and I moved a brush pile because they also love brush piles. This little fellow's been singing on my a pile I had of arbutus branches out there, and so I moved that pile back to closer to the forest so that he would get his mind occupied off the swallow box. And here comes Alison.
We'll see if that works.
We'll see if it works. Really bubbly. So the house wren, a bubbly little fellow, and yeah, not endangered at all. Now I think Alison's going to go on to the next ones.
Yeah, the wrens are such fantastic singers. I worked in the Amazon for a long time ago, and that's the center of distribution of all the wrens, and there was so many wrens with so many wonderful songs. So the next one I want to talk about, we're moving away from the wrens and into a little flocking bird called the pine siskin. So these are, you really hear the flocks before you see the individual birds. I don't think I've ever seen a pair nesting, but anyway, they use a lot of calls, like Trudy was talking about, these calls that help keep the flocks together. And they're seed eaters. You can tell by the little bit of a heavyish beak. Yeah, they've got a kind of, do you want to get this calls up, okay, Trudy?
This is a song. Sorry, I'll get the call.
Yeah, that's that. That
wheezy call. And they'll be up in the conifers, and and they use their little bills to get the seeds out of combs. So they'll be often at the tops of trees where the combs are.
And they flock. The reason that they flock is because seeds are a crop that you find patchily distributed in dense distributions, and then in other areas of the forest hardly at all. So the advantage of the flock in a bird that eats seeds is that the whole flock can move around, and if somebody finds a good patch of cones and seeds, then the whole flock knows about it, and then so they kind of help each other find the food source.
This is a call you'll more often actually hear in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard them singing around here. Maybe they move up in elevation to nest.
I think they do.
Okay, here's one of my favorite birds, the red-breasted nuthatch. And again, there's more than one species of nuthatch in BC, but only one on Vancouver Island, the red-breasted nuthatch. And they are insectivorous, you can tell by the little pointy beak, and they are bark crawlers. So you see them head down, crawling down bark or along branches, gleaning insects in the furrows of the bark and underneath lichens and things like that. They're also hole nesters. I was reading something about them. They collect resin, like the kind of resin that oozes from the bark of Doug fir in the summertime, and they plaster the resin around the hole, their nesting hole, to try to discourage other things from coming in the nesting hole, I guess, like a fly trap, almost like that. And apparently the male will even use an applicator, like a little piece of bark with resin on it, and apply that on the outside of the hole, and then the female applies the resin on the inside of the hole. I thought that was pretty amazing. And they have a really, really distinctive call.
oink, oink, oink.
Or I learned it as yank, yank, yank.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Very, very common call around
That's a song, actually.
Protection Island.
Yeah, that's their song.
That's their song. Anyway, they're beautiful, beautiful birds. I love them.
You want some nasal toots? These are nasal toots and interactions.
Later in the breeding season, you see them doing this in their family groups as they move around together. Okay.
That's the normal call. Okay.
So now, as the red-breasted nuthatch is spiraling down a trunk, you'll often see the brown creeper spiraling up the trunk. So they move upwards from down to up, also picking out insects from the furrows. And they really like large trees, and they almost disappear on a tree trunk, like a big Doug fir trunk. So I always am so happy when I see a brown creeper, because they're not showy, but they're actually really beautiful if you look at the details of their feathers. And I don't know, they're just, it's fun to find them, because it's like finding Waldo or something.
They're so camouflaged.
Yeah, they're so camouflaged to the trunks.
And they also, I think they creep up.
They creep up, yeah.
Now there's this is their call.
So high.
Okay, now I'm going to play, I think it has songs. This is their song they're singing now. This time.
So it's interesting, if you compare the beak of the brown creeper to the beak of the nuthatch, even though they're basically occupying the exact same niche, you can see the beaks are a little bit different shapes, so they're getting getting a different depth of the bark or different type of insect. So they're managing to share their habitat in that way. Okay, Trudy?
Now this is a little bird that we see a lot, we see and hear quite a lot around the roadsides of Protection Island. And there's maybe they flock around the bushtit, and they flock around in little flocks, and they make wonderful noises. These are also residents, and they make incredible nests. And I wish we could.
There's one just outside of Dawn and Tanis's place.
Yeah, they're often nesting in shrubs and ocean spray, and apparently Alison's seen one nesting outside Dawn and Tanis's house.
In a maple. Right?
In a maple. Okay, and they also nest, I've seen them in another spot, I think over by Graham and Jane's house too. But they seem to nest on the edge. They don't seem to mind bushes, edges of roads and things like that. These are the bush tits. They're really small.
Talk about the nest.
Yeah, their nest is fantastic. It's pendulant. So they weave it from lichens and little mosses and strings or whatever they find around it, or hair, people's hair. And they weave it, and then it's a pendulant hanging nest with just a little hole opening, but it's completely woven. Is there a picture of Alison you can show on your phone?
I don't know. Let's listen to the song first
and
then I'll look for a picture.
Okay. Another high-pitched one.
Now I'll look for a picture of the nest.
What about their call? Do you want me to call notes?
No, I can get the call note up.
Okay, get the call notes, because you do hear those quite a bit. Sometimes if you imitate that, they'll come looking, oh, who's here?